when you're playing the game, but materialism is just the idea that material is part of, what helps you win the game.
So this could be like pride, maybe. Perfection is like pride.
Well, see, I would not jump to the conclusion that each of these corresponds
actually, materialism is lust.
I don't think they correspond one-to-one to an actual sin.
Okay.
So the way to think about chess sin is they are a misreading of reality.
Okay.
So whenever you misread reality, you are making a chess sin. Misreading chess reality, you are making a chess sin. Does that make sense? So if you think material is the only thing that matters or whatever, you're thinking about chess reality wrong because you're overvaluing material, then that would be making the chess sin. And here, perfectionism, it's when I had an idea of what I thought it was before I read the chapter, it turned out I was completely wrong. It's nothing that I thought it would be, and you might be surprised at this. So there are actually 3 kinds of perfectionism when you're playing chess, and I'm gonna present to you the first one. And so the name of this chapter this is the Devil's Opening. So you'll see what I mean by the Devil's Opening in a second. So D4, D5, that's pretty normal. C4, C6, that's fine. I have no problem with this. Yes, yes. And now, ooh, oh. So does this make anyone else's blood boil? Is anyone else saying, oh, we're going to do, yeah, Suhas is, yeah, so what's the feeling you get when you see this move? So you're white, you see black play this move, what are you feeling?
He has control of the white-colored squares.
Now, Suhas, I know that you play a different move on move 2, right? To protect your pawn, right?
I do, and it's
Yeah.
right here, like playing bishop f5, it's like getting everything you can possibly want
Yes.
from the black side.
So what am I thinking right now as the white pieces? I'm thinking this guy has to pay the price, right? And this actually creates the first sin. Black didn't actually make the sin. I'm making the sin now because my sin is I need to punish. So this is the demoralizing sin. So here, now there's actually 2. I think the move I played is not the best move, but it's actually one of the 2 good moves in this position. And black is just going through the motions. I'm getting really upset here. I'm like, this guy thinks he could just have everything. He could have his cake and eat it too. So I capture. He realizes his B pawn is hanging. So I take this and I'm up a pawn and I'm thinking, okay, I'm relatively satisfied. I'm up a pawn. So I'm just going to play this game. I'm just going to play any move and I'm going to win. So here we go. All right, I developed. I can't possibly lose this game. Oh, that's kind of annoying, but all right. How am I going to develop my knight? I guess I'll just play B3 here. And then I'll go here. This is a little bit annoying. And then in this position, I said, you know what? I'm going to stop him from getting any sort of play. But with C5, I think that's probably good. And then I said, I'm going to get this bishop. And then I was like, wait a minute. I don't have any squares for my knight. And then I realized, after this horrendous display of chess, that I was worse. After all of that, my opponent has a very active rook. His pieces are more active. His pawns are coming down, they're storming, and I failed to punish. I thought I was punishing, but then I didn't. So maybe this is a lesson when you're trying to punish somebody that you still have to play good moves after the punishment as well. So, okay.
This is one of your games?
Yeah, I'm not proud of it, but it was a 10-minute game. So there are 3 types of perfectionism in chess, and the first one you just saw, it was moralizing. I don't know if you are prone to perfectionism. Moralizing will happen often in the opening of the game. So as you see, a very famous perfectionist, you might recognize him. He said, E4 best by test. All right? So who is this perfectionist? E5.
Go ahead.
Robert Fisher? Yes, so if you see a good move, look for a better move. What's a better move here? Obviously, you could have played C5, but all right. E4, E5. F4. Oh, no! What happened? What happened? White lost his mind, right? So here, Robert Fisher says, the refutation of any gambit begins with accepting it. In my opinion, the king's gambit is busted. It loses by force. All right, so how do you bust the king's gambit? Well, it's very important. You play D6, a high-class waiting move. He actually says you can, of course you can play D5 here and equalize immediately, but why equalize when you can be better, right? And if you're interested in reading more about this analysis, the whole thing is out there on the internet. Just type in Robert Fisher, King's Gambit, or a bust to the King's Gambit. He wrote this essay, and at the end of his analysis, he says, and at the end of this, white is simply lost. Of course, he could play differently, but he'll lose in a different way. So that is the analysis.
Do you want to use a mouse?
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
I think it's in there.
I don't know if it'll make it that much easier, but
You can use the scroll to like move
Yeah.
back and forth. So you don't have to be at the computer.
I'm just not sure if I put it in this.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So I thought this was a nice example of moralizing, which is trying to punish your opponent's incorrect moves. So in this position, all right, we're going to need to plug in. So incorrect, right? I mean, this move,
The Alpine.
yeah, I mean, it couldn't possibly be worse, right? So,
We had an Alpine player years ago.
Barassa.
Thanks, Mr. Ex-historian.
Ron Barassa. We did
Ron
that.
Baraka,
Yeah.
you're right. Good trivia question, by the way.
might be tomorrow. Okay, so if you really want to punish this, you gotta go all in, right? You gotta play F4. That is where the punishment begins. So Bishop F5 comes up, and I don't know if you might recognize the guy playing the black pieces there. His name is, what's that? Magnus. He just has one name. He's so famous, you can get away with one name, like Cher. Or, I don't know. Madonna. There you go. Magnus. And this game, I don't know, it didn't really have much importance. It was just like the second blitz game to decide the match against Nakamura, right? So, whoever won this game, oh, actually, it was the first one, yeah. So it was the Blitz playoff in the Magnus Carlsen Invitational. So they had just played some 4 rapid games, they tied, and then this is the Blitz playoff. So they had 5 minutes to play, 5 plus 3. And,
I think it was a draw.
well, we're just going to look at how this we're just going to look at how white punishes black. This is important because black has sinned. Black played knight of 6. And, except this move here, people were pointing out after the game that bishop e2 is a little bit of a misstep. I don't know, why might that be? Anyone else think this move was not quite perfect?
I mean, D3 is usually the most active square,
Yeah.
but if you want to win, you probably want to keep pieces off the board, on the board, right?
Okay, so maybe this is like kind of the ideal way to punish. But I don't know, I've heard the argument that this bishop on f5 is too strong and you got to trade it. But all right, maybe if you're in full punishment mode, you got to play bishop e2.
Okay.
Okay. And c5 comes, and we castle, and black is very awkwardly bringing his knights over here, very provocatively to win our c-pawn, and there's nothing we can do, we're just going to lose that. But we're going to try for an attack. But we just lost another pawn, okay? And there goes a rook. So we're still waiting for the punishments. That's my analysis. We're still waiting for the punishment. What does the computer say?
I remember there was a
Minus 4.3. Okay, so the punishment is going to come. But we just don't see it here. All right, that's the end of my analysis. So actually, there was a chance, I don't know if you saw the game, there was a chance for Nakamura to draw later on, but he didn't find it. Yeah. So the first type of perfectionism you just saw, it was the moralizing, kind of, how do I punish this? I know something's wrong about this. I want to punish it. And actually, that tends to eat up a lot of clock time. We look for things that are not really there. It doesn't always work the way we think it's going to work when we're trying to play perfectly, because we know some move just doesn't seem right. Maybe we read something somewhere about how this position's supposed to be played, and our opponent isn't doing that. So we're just like, well, it must be really bad then. And then that's how we sin. We end up kind of misreading the board. We start seeing some advantages for us that don't really exist. And the second one here is when we really like our position. So something seems really good here. So we have bread and butter. But we really want even more. So this is where we're happy with our position, but we want more from it.
That's a gluttony.
Yeah, so in this case, Jonathan Rowson calls this jam lust. So we have bread and butter, but what would make this bread and butter taste even better if we add some jam? So bread, butter, and jam. So here is a game I played against Joe Rico, and I had prepared for him with the idea that he would let me get this nice, beautiful center. I just knew he'd give it to me, and he did. And I said, I'm just going to take the center, I'm going to develop. This is the way they tell you to play chess, right? When you're learning, they say, oh, just do this. Put your knights here, put your rooks here, put your bishops here. Done. Now you just win the game, right? And I don't even know what white's doing here. I mean, it's a little bit messier. So they tell me that bishops are a little bit better than knights. It's my understanding. So here we go. And I'm going to take this pawn. And I really like my position. I'm going to pin that knight. This is looking pretty good. So bring my rook over here. And so here's where I get jam lust. This is a very serious offense, jam lust here. I was looking at this and I said, you know what would make this position even better? I'm gonna trade rooks. I'm gonna force this rook trade. I'm gonna play rook f6, and no way he can do anything about that. He's gonna have to move his queen because no one wants to step into this nasty pin with the rook. So I said, this is looking really good for me. And then he played the move that I thought could not be played. And then I thought about it for a bit. And I said, okay, so I go here. But then he goes, then he just goes here. And actually, this isn't that good. And I just allowed this knight to get, very active. This knight's very good. So, actually, if we fast forward in the game a little bit, let's see. This happens. We're just going to fast forward a little bit. This happens. What is going on? I don't know. Oh, boy. And I think I ran out of recorded moves here, but let's just say this isn't very good. I don't know how my position turned into this, but I think it starts with that moment of jam lust. And I think Joe said to me after the game, he's like, why aren't you satisfied with your position? Why do you keep trying to, try to squeeze the best move out of her? And Joe, I think, Joe Rico and Joe Billmeyer both are two of the biggest pragmatists, I would say, in their own ways. Very pragmatic players. And so they don't always, see eye to eye with someone who's trying to play the very best move all the time. So is that fair to assess you as a pragmatic?
Yeah, I would say if you see a path to victory, take it and don't worry about being the most, flashy or accurate,
Yeah, so I'm not the only person, though, that gets involved with this sort of thinking. So this is a game between Nigel Short and Anatoly Karpov. In '92, they had a match to see who would compete with Garry Kasparov in the World Championship. So this was a candidates match, and Short is black here, and he's kind of pushing for the win. And so he has a grand plan, but I would just ask, how, generally speaking, how should black go about converting this into a win? Just with your understanding of chess, how does black win this game? Just kind of give a summary, if you can. Yeah.
You create a passed pawn on your side of the board.
Which side of the board?
The king side. Black's king side. You create a passed pawn, but carefully. And you have to extinguish white's counterplay first, and then create a passed pawn and creep forward with your passed pawn.
So you want to push the this is the queen side, right?
Yeah.
So you want to push the c pawn?
Yeah, eventually.
Because you have the majority.
Yeah. Right, exactly. You want to engineer it though. You don't want to just do it brashly. You want to make sure it's at the right time.
So yeah, you don't know necessarily if c4 is the right move here, but generally speaking, if you want to win this game, you have the 3 versus 2 majority.
Right.
So that's how you win, right? Anyone else Exchanging rooks would help, yeah. That's an interesting. Yeah, so I'll tell you, in the game they did not exchange rooks, and Karpov figured out how to draw, and the rook was an important part of that draw. So I think if you do exchange rooks,
The
yeah,
idea is that the opponent's strength gets less because we don't exchange pawns, we just exchange
Yeah.
pieces when we want to convert a drawing to win, right?
yeah. So if we're going to exchanging rooks seems good. Does it seem like it's easy to exchange rooks here?
No, not right now.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how we're possibly going to pull that off, but maybe, yeah. So this is where Nigel Short gets jam lust. So he has his bread, he has his butter, and it's, you know, it's not bad. It doesn't taste bad, but we could add jam. And in order to add jam here, he decides he wants to restrict White's piece mobility, kind of give him nothing to do. So he starts with, that's h5, and Karpov doesn't really have anything to do, so he's just kind of waiting. And now we're going to move our knight, and then we're going to do this. And then we're going to go back. And we take this pawn. So what do you think? Did we just make our job easier?
The king is closer to becoming all his pawns.
So we took a pawn. So I feel like that's a pretty good plan, right?
But after knight d3 check, it will be a problem, right?
So you believe we should move here. Okay. And then what's the idea? So where do we go? Where does our king go? So this move does attack this pawn, right? So we have this going on. So what should we do? Probably king to defend. Okay, we go knight here. So what do we do?
To defend your pawn.
Defend knight d5.
Knight g5.
Knight g5. Oh. That's funny. Well, for some reason he didn't play that move. I'm wondering if I could cheat a little bit. What if someone's a pawn here? Yeah, I mean, so let's see. We can go rook c1. Okay. Now, I should just preface that this should be winning for black, but what happens in the game after this is Short went back like this, and when this pawn was taken, it wasn't in that position, but he came over here, he came back here, and grabbed this pawn, and eventually, so not in this position, he had to go back with the rook because of this fork, but eventually what happened was Karpov was able to trade off all of these pawns, and I'll just show you the game. So we're takes, it goes here, and I'm going to say, even though this position is winning for black, finding the right idea, I would say this is the last move that kind of gives kind of an easier road to victory. If this line of thought was played, black still wins. But it's not easy to find this stuff. And I think once C3 was found, the computer doesn't necessarily understand it because it's like it's one of those table-based draws where it looks like it's winning, but the computer doesn't really understand it. So after this was played, black is having a really hard time holding on to the pawn. And after this, even though black looks, the king's all the way over here, and this pawn looks like it can just march up and win, this is a well-known draw. So I believe it's called the Vancouver position, where as long as the king is over here, the rook cannot swing over to the other side and deliver this check to pick up the rook over here when he takes your pawn, right? So the fact that the king's all the way over here prevents this rook from ever moving out of the way for the pawn to promote. So I don't know if I could demonstrate. So in the game, we can try to bring the king over here, but then the rook will just get out of the way and keep checking our king forever. So this sort of thing happened because the main plan of just going for c4, which is the kind of the common sense idea of how you win a position like that, maybe he just felt like, oh, this is Karpov, I have to do something a little extra. Yeah.
Right. I think Nigel was like going for the maximum. He wanted to grab every little bit of space possible.
Yeah.
Play h5, h4, h3, but the pawn h3 just became a weakness. It can be attacked.
Yeah.
And you're stuck defending it or trading it. So trying to go for that just backfired for Nigel.
And being left with just an h pawn is not, or a rook pawn, in this case it's the a pawn, is not ideal, is it? If you're going to be left with one, you probably want one either on the B or C file. Is that correct? The endgame masters. Okay.
Yeah, the rook pawn's usually with one pawn like that is almost usually the worst one.
Yeah, so that one tends to kind of allow some tricks. So that's Jam Lust. Any questions? So we have.
Was that a win for Short if he did the plan of just the steep pawn forward?
Yeah, that was a direct win. In fact, he had wins later on. They were just very difficult to find, especially against somebody like Karpov, who was looking for the right simplification that's a table-based draw. So Karpov is like one of the hardest players to beat ever because he knows his basic endgames so well. So I think Short was kind of intimidated by the fact that if we get to a simplified endgame, this guy is probably going to defend like the best way. And I think he was just intimidated by that. So here, this is the third type of sin for perfectionism. And it's pretty interesting. It doesn't seem like it should be a sin, but I'll just, it's called the copycat crime. So it's when you think somebody plays a certain way. And I'm going to show a video of Simon Williams trying to play like Paul Morphy.
Hello.
So I just want, before I show this, is everybody in the room familiar with Paul Morphy? Anyone not know who he is? Because maybe it'd be better to start by showing his most famous game. maybe it'd be better to do that. So anyone not very familiar with polymorphy? Okay. Yeah, why don't we just show that first? Let's start with that. So chess games, polymorphy, opera game, chess games. I'm just going to go through this real quick so you have an idea of how Morphe plays. I think that would give you a better chance, because I'm going to kind of play a game with you guys to see if you understand his style after this. So.
Just give it a second.
So this game is famous because he was at the opera with a couple of a duke and a count, some important men. He was just trying to enjoy the opera, but they kept harassing him to play a chess game, so we said fine. So they decided to team up against him. They were playing the black pieces. He was with the white pieces. He played e4, and after this move, black doesn't want to lose a pawn by taking, and then queen takes, and then knight takes pawn. So he goes here. Morphe goes for checkmate here. So black defends. Morphe swings over here to attack here and here. But black defends the pawn on f7. And of course, Morphe goes and takes b7. No, he is not satisfied with that. He wants more. He wants to win quickly so he can get back to the opera. Doesn't want to waste time with just a pawn. So black goes here. We're going to develop, and we're going to pin this knight. And we're going to retreat our bishop if it was attacked, right? No. Of course not. Now, Morphe would not do this. Morphe takes it. And, of course, if we can castle and attack a piece at the same time, we are going to do that. And, oh, it's just in the way. We have two rooks anyway. We don't need that one. And here, after takes.
Pause.
How do you win this game? Yes. Queen b8 check. That's crazy. You're just giving away your queen. Okay, I guess it's worth it if you get the checkmate. So, at the end of this game, white is down significant material, but checkmate. This is Morphe. Very famous game. He was far and away the best player of his time, but he had maybe some mental illnesses that prevented him from playing more games, because a bit like Fischer, he played for a relatively short period of time, and then he just stopped, and he refused to play against everybody except his best friend, Mauryan. So,
to be fair, he wanted to go to law school to become a lawyer, so he's doing chess before becoming a lawyer, and back then they didn't have big prizes, so he's like, chess is my hobby, and he wasn't a really good lawyer at all. I think he didn't practice law.
I don't know.
And then he died young or something, so.
He died young, yes.
Yeah, but the world champion went playing. He went to Europe, and Steins wouldn't even play him because he was scared of him. So he didn't even get to play the world champion. Steins wouldn't play him.
Staunton.
Sorry, Staunton.
Yeah, Staunton, right.
Yeah.
Steins was after his time, yeah. So play like Morphe Day is to try to play like that game I just showed you. And
as Charlie Chaplin would say in many of his brilliant songs, movies. So what are we going to do today? Well, I think today is Play Like Morphe Day. It's the National Play Like Morphe Day. Now, you have so many stupid days going on. You have even Kick a Ginger Day. I don't know who invented that, but I want to give them a damn good kick. You have, I don't know, so many silly days, but today is Play Like Morphe Day. So the aim of this quick video is to play maybe two games, just two games, and I'm going to play like Morphe. So every move, I'm going to ask myself, what would Morphe do here? Even if I lose, even if I get stuffed horribly, this is the aim of the two videos. So what would Morphe do here? This is what we've got to keep asking ourselves. And of course, I'm talking about the great and brilliant, let me just bring him up here, Paul Morphe. And you can Google him yourself, of course, but Paul Morphe was a legend of chess, and we'll just bring up a picture of the legend here. And we'll get rid of the Wikipedia donation thing. I hope you've all donated to them. I certainly haven't. Okay, well there is the great Paul Morphe, the legend of American chess. And he looks like a young man there, doesn't he? But we're going to try to play like this gentleman. I haven't quite done my hair the same as him today. I've done my normal kind of look. But the question is, what would Morphe do? So what would Morphe do in the opening? Well, Morphe would play in a romantic fashion. He would, oh, I'm getting Morphe by Morphe. Oh my lord, you can't do this to me. I'm getting morphified. I'm supposed to be the one sacrificing, not you. Okay, well, Captain Amulo is playing like Morphe. Okay, so what would Morphe do here? Morphe would counter-attack in the centre with d5. And now what would Morphe do? Morphe would give up the pawn on d5 and try to develop with speed. So that is precisely what we're going to do here. What would Morphe do here? He would develop and not worry about it. Okay. I'm going to try to play some moves in between. So I've no idea at all what this opening is about. Morphe would not swap queens off. That just looks really, really not good, not happy. Now, okay, so what's happening here? What would Morphe do? Morphe would just have to play a move like this. By the way, I might not be trying this challenge again in a hurry. This kind of seems like a bit of a tough challenge I've got myself into here. Okay. So, even the great Morphe has to go backwards occasionally. Sometimes you have to go backwards to come forwards. And who's supposed to be Morphe here? Look, I'm supposed to be Morphe, not my opponent. My opponent is, well, he's Morphe me, isn't he? Okay, right. So I have lost a pawn here for absolutely zero compensation, maybe like the great Morphe as well, and the position is not looking so great. I have two bishops, so if in the days of these coffee house chess players, it'd be right, well, you know, have a pawn, have a piece head start. It doesn't bother me because I am the great ambitious Morphe who doesn't like endings and has somehow got himself into a bit of a kabuggle ending here.
Okay, so as you can see, it doesn't always quite work the way you think it's going to work, and that is that. However, I have 3 games here. Let's start with part 1. And I have a mystery player. Now, they're all playing the black pieces. So there's a mystery player with the black pieces and a mystery opponent with the white pieces. And you have to guess which one was played by Paul Morphe. So you guys think you can do it? Pretty easy. So...
No.
This is,
No way Morphe's playing d6.
no way? No way? Okay. So here we go. Pretty interesting. White's attacking. But does white have enough? I don't know. Does white have enough? Looks like black is coming back. And
I think he's white.
you think Morphe's white? Well, all right, let's make this game a little easier. I don't know, I'm not telling you which game it is, but Morphe will be playing black. So I'm going to make it easier for you. He's not playing white in any of the games. So that's the first game. And black won this game. So here's the second game. I'm going to show you. And here we go. So another Philidor. And this time, let's see.
He doesn't care about like backward pawns that much. He just throws his pawns forward. He throws his pawn forward. I don't care my pawn.
The thing is, pawns get in the way. You can be, if you want to use your rooks, you want to use your bishops, your queen, the pawns got to get out of the way so you can use them. Oh, a little faster. And yeah, this game was played at warp speed. And here, looks like black is penetrating here. And, well, it looks like this one fizzles out to a draw. And here is the third game. Here we go, mystery player. The pawns are coming out. He's got doubled pawns. So it's a bit of a mess. Some captures coming every second. But it looks like this is the end of the game here. Okay, so those are 3 games. I played them by quick, but you guys all know Morphe, so it's pretty obvious which game was played by Morphe, right? Let's vote. So if you think Morphe played this game, raise your hand. We'll vote.
You said he played all black.
No, I'm saying that there's 3 games. Morphe played one of the games as black, and I'm not telling you which one was played by Morphe. So if you think Morphe played black in this game, raise your hand. So we have 1, 2, 3. Looks like 3?
4,
4, okay.
5.
And we have 5, okay. And game 2, if you think Morphe played black in this game, raise your hand. Okay, we have no one for that one. All right, and game 3, if you think Morphe played black in this game, raise your hand. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so you guys think this. Now, I will tell you that this game was played in 1912.
Oh, okay.
This game here was played in 1912 by Aaron Nimzovich. This was Aaron Nimzovich. And I will tell you, this game, this was the one that had the second most votes, was played in 1954 in Riga
So Tal.
by Mikhail Tal. Yes.
Well, Tao's like Morphe, kind of.
Yeah.
kind of the same.
It's a decent guess.
Yeah.
But do you even think of Tal as getting like sacked on and defending? He actually played this game when he was a teenager, maybe 14 years old. So Tal played this game. And what's interesting about this game is this opening is an exact copy of Morphe's. So,
Wow, the one that no one
so
guessed.
Morphe played this opening the same exact way as Tal. So, and unfortunately, no one was able to guess. So, I think this is important.
Do you want to wrap this up with the last one?
What's
Do
that?
you want to wrap it up with this last one?
Okay, this could be. Oh, it's 7. I
Yeah.
didn't even realize what time it was. Okay, so this will be the last one. So the copycat crime is when you imagine that somebody would play this move in this position. So unfortunately, we actually have a really bad idea of what the master would play in that position. So even though we think we have an idea of what this player would be thinking, we don't always get it right. So what's interesting is Rowson had just played a mini match with Mickey Adams, like 6 games against Michael Adams, who is one of the strongest players in British history. Some say stronger than Nigel Short. And after that match, he felt like he had a pretty good idea of what Michael Adams would do. So in this position, he didn't really know what to do as black. He's up a pawn in this, but he's about to get attacked, so it's a little bit complicated. White has definite compensation for the pawn, but if black is careful, knows what he's doing, he could win this game. He could defend the attack. Black will defend the attack and then win the game. So in this position, Jonathan Rowson thought, I wonder what Michael Adams would do, because he couldn't really find a move he liked himself. And he had this idea that Mickey Adams, he would play knight e4. He would just go in like this. And he had this visual image of Michael Adams playing a strong knight e4. And after knight takes, pawn takes, he came to the conclusion that he just gave white more freedom for his pieces to move around. And that knight that he gave up was a strong defender of his king. So he just ended up kind of giving away. At the end, when he analyzed it after the game, he came to the conclusion that e5 just wins. So if he was honest with himself what Michael Adams would play, Michael Adams would have just looked at the position himself and looked for a forcing move that was strong and you can calculate out to a win. So I guess that's all I have time for because, we don't have time to talk about Alexander Grishik, but maybe in the future we'll talk about him because he's somebody who was is a perfectionist, but also a blitz champion. He was a world blitz champion twice, if I remember. And because of that, he can play very slowly during the game, but then when he gets into time pressure, his decisions are really strong. So that's something to keep in mind, is if you are a perfectionist and you're committing the copycat crime, or you're moralizing, or you're trying to demand too much of your position, and you're spending too much time on these decisions, then you will get in time trouble. And I think that's kind of the main reason why you can't just be a perfectionist and be a really great chess player. So that's all. Thank you.